Why, hello there. I'm Sin. We're in the Book Nook, and today we're going to talk about the book Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent. This book is a strange book, and Sally Diamond is quite the strange egg. So when you come into the book, her father has been ill for quite some time, and she's been taking care of him. And she's always taken things very literally. Like, her dad would say she's kind of like emotionally disconnected. So at one point in time, he's like, when I die, just put me out with the trash. And he might not have really been serious when he said that, but she took it literally, so she kind of puts him out in the trash when he dies and gets in trouble for this and may be a suspect for murder. All right, so that's what you come into in the story. So she's a little off, and as you get into it, you learn that her dad said, who's her adoptive father? It wasn't her actual biological dad. He told her that they found her in the forest when she was a kid, which she believed, but this is not the truth. This is not where she actually came from. Once the whole thing happens with her dad, where she had disposed of the body in a very unsavory way, but it wasn't like, there was no ill will behind it. He had had pancreatic cancer. He passed away, and she's like, all right, well, dispose of the body. Anyways, so that happens. She doesn't think anything's wrong. I think she goes to the post office, and then somehow it comes up, and they're like, oh, what? So eventually she talks to one of her parents' friends, this woman who is a doctor that had worked with her adoptive mother. Her name is Angela, and Angela's like, you shouldn't have done that. That's not legal. And so we're gonna have to get you a lawyer and all this stuff. Her dad had written her these letters. He's like, just read one a week. It's going to kind of tell her about where she actually came from. She wasn't a baby found in the forest. It's going to tell her about her history. And she has a pretty traumatic history that seems like she blocked out. Her dad was a psychologist, and so was her mom. And so these letters actually end up having to be turned over to the police. So the police get a hold of them before she's able to read them all. She has copies of them. But what happens is it kind of has her history of where she came from and who she was, and someone leaks it to the press, and this gets out, and then people start calling her Mary Norton, and she's like, what is going on? And it's a weird book. It's really well written. It is not horror. It's more like, I would just call it fiction, just weird fiction. So when she finds out, or actually everyone else finds out more about her than she actually knows, like, why are they calling me Mary Norton? It turns out that her mother was kidnapped when she was 11 years old by this guy named Connor Geary. Connor Geary was 31. He kept her for 14 years in captivity. He mentally and sexually abused her. She is the daughter of the mother and the guy who kidnapped her. She was born 8 years later after when she was in captivity. Once they were able to get out of there, the mother was so damaged that they didn't think she could ever be normal again. But the daughter, they thought there was still a chance that they could help her and she could live a fairly normal life. So they worked with them, and her parents, they actually lived with Sally Diamond and her mom in the psychiatric ward for like 14 months. And eventually they decided they should try to separate the daughter and the mom. And the mom, didn't want to be separated from her at all, constantly just wouldn't let her go. And so one night they heavily sedated the mom so that she would sleep, and then had the daughter go in just the next room just to start to do that so that the daughter didn't develop even more issues from this and start to try to fix this. But things did not go very well, and at some point in time they end up adopting Mary Norton, who becomes Sally Diamond, and they don't ever really tell her any of this. Sally is finding this out slowly but surely after her father has passed away. She doesn't remember any of it either, because apparently she had been heavily sedated when she was a kid, and just that memory of the time when they were locked up, because she was there till I think she was 7. She was either 6 or 7, I want to say, when they were finally able to escape from there. So she didn't remember any of it, and probably trauma just blocked it out. Maybe the drugs that they had given to her too, once she was in therapy and whatnot. And so they raise her, and she lives a fairly normal-ish life, but she's still mentally, as I said, takes things literally, doesn't really know how to socially interact quite normally. She doesn't have friends. She likes to keep to herself. She doesn't really like people. But after her father dies, she slowly starts branching out and she starts to have actual relationships with people and friends. And at first it's kind of awkward because she's so socially awkward, and like having people know all about her before she even knew any of this herself is really freaking weird. And like reading this story about this, I can't say I've read anything quite like it. It's a fascinating read. And just to think about like, there's probably instances of something like this actually, being a thing. So I don't know if the author took from actual like case studies, or it's a weirdly unsettling, disturbing, but yet a little bit sweet with how she's finally able to make friends and have, slowly like integrate into society in a way that is comfortable to her, and kind of explain to people like, yeah, I don't always say the right thing, and a little bit about my history, probably more than I do, because my dad said I can only read one of these letters a week. So she reads these letters that he had written, like, and she comes to find out about this. And then eventually she gets this weird like teddy bear in the mail that she remembers, and it says S is the initial. It came from like New Zealand, and she's like, this was my bear. Like she clearly remembers this bear, and it was the bear from like when she had been kidnapped. So now she's kind of like freaked out that the kidnapper's still out there and doesn't know for sure. And like, especially because with the whole thing with her dad, she was in the newspaper, became national news. So it seems as if either someone knows where she is and knows where she lives, and they sent her this bear. And so now she's all like freaked out about that, and just the way she is emotionally. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's weird. It's like a psychological read about what the heck the mind can do when put in such traumatic experiences, like how you handle that later in life. It never really goes away, like that is there with you. Those are the scars you bear, and just trying to find some normal semblance of life, and just her being able to have some friends, was kind of a beautiful thing, because who knew that she would ever actually be able to do that. So if that sounds interesting to you, you just might like Strange Sally Diamond. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.